everyone knows GV's a saxophone player and amazing guy. And then Joel, hey Joel,
Hey, how you guys doing?
good. We were just kind of talking where you're from and what you play, kind of just getting to know each other.
Well, I think I'm an ex-saxophone player at this point, but I live in Central Illinois.
Oh, nice. Well, you
So
still play the horn a little bit, or you're just here to hang out
around
and
the
listen to
house,
us talk about
just
stuff?
well,
Yeah,
just around the house anymore. There's not a lot of opportunity, and I haven't networked a lot in a few years, but I do still like playing.
great. That's all that
If only
matters.
for myself. And I watch
Nice.
your 2-5 stuff, and I find myself sometimes motivates me to get down to the basement and work through stuff. And I like the motivation.
Nice.
Watching anybody on the web that kind of motivates is a big thing for me. So
Nice. Well, some of you guys know this, but the 2-5 club, so for Joel, if you ever need any motivation, that's completely free now. So it's got, I think we're up to like 20 lines. So every week I do a new line, and if you're in the club, it's literally you have a PDF that you get for all 12 keys of that line. So if you want to just you know, shed for 10 minutes and just go through all the lines or try to figure them out and transpose them into different keys. Perfect. But um, you know, that's something to hopefully keep you motivated. But it's always cool to hear um, you're getting motivated and playing even if you're not doing it for a living. Is there
right.
anyone else here other than I know Ryan and GV are professional musicians. Jim, Eli.
I'm not a professional musician. I was a longtime rock bass player on electric. I went to Berklee College of Music for about a year and a half when I was around 20 or something.
Okay.
And but just before the pandemic, I decided to start playing jazz really for the first time. And then the pandemic struck. But there's a music school in Berkeley, California, that has a public ensemble program where you sign up and it's like by semester and then you have a concert at the end. So I've been doing those for like the last 4 years, except COVID interrupted. And so it's been great. And there are some people in the Bay Area I'm starting to jam with, and I'd like to have like a quintet and be playing around a little bit. Oh, and I switched to upright about 2 years ago.
Very
So it's
cool.
a great challenge. I love the sound of the instrument and this music. So yeah, and thanks for sending your stuff around for free. And I bought your PDF book, and I just need to find time sometimes to go through and shed all this stuff and get
The
better.
bass clef version is on the way. I will send you a copy of it. It's Race is working on it right now, so he's getting all that put together.
Yeah,
Um
I like how brief your material is, and you don't, over explain things. And even your theme song doesn't go to the one. I love that.
yeah, it does in another version. I just cut it out for that because I was like, well, it's 2-5 of the day, so we'll just yeah, before it used to do the 2-5 Tuesday thing. So it used to resolve and Tom Hanks gave someone a high five. I can't remember the whole
Oh
little
yeah.
sequence, but yeah. Um Jim, if you do get a quintet going up there, I got a really good friend named Joe Majors, who's a really great saxophone player who lives up there. And I'll have to link you two up when you're ready because he's a monster player. He's great. And he's such a great guy. I'm pretty sure he's either semi-retired or retired at this point, but he's playing a lot and he's great. So,
Ah, cool.
um,
Thank you.
yeah. Um, is it Sergey? Sergey? How do you say your name? I'm sorry.
Sergey,
Sergey. Nice
it's
to
Sergey.
have you here.
Yeah,
How you
great. A
doing?
little late to the party. I had a little trouble installing Zoom, but I finally managed.
No worries. We're just talking and hanging, so it's all good. You're not late at all. So, and are
Great.
you a saxophone player?
Yes, I'm a saxophone player. I play tenor saxophone,
Very.
very much on an amateur level. I think Jim said he studied at the Berklee College of Music.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow. No, I'm one of those late bloomer kind of guys. I started playing when I was like 30 or something.
Very
And
good.
then I played for a few years, got married, got kids, and of course playing dropped off sharply from that point. And I actually got back into playing during the pandemic, when we all were sitting, twiddling our thumbs. And I
Nice.
kind of got back into playing and,
And
trying
where are
to
you at?
get better with time. I'm from the Netherlands.
Oh, very cool. Wow, yeah, we might have all the time zones here eventually.
It's about 7 a.m. In the evening here. So
Oh, okay. Very good. Um, yeah, you're are you in the same time zone as France as the Olympics, so you get to watch everything pretty much live, or
yeah,
are you
yeah,
right around?
yeah. That's
Yeah,
exactly the same time zone. Yeah.
very cool. Well, we got someone else coming in, so so I'm just gonna admit people as they come. I will totally, we can facilitate conversation, we can talk music. I have some talking points, but uh,
Mhm.
me and Jeff Vidal, we just wanted to kind of get people together to meet some of you and answer questions if you have any.
Oh, cool.
Get to know you all because there's a lot of interaction, on the internet these days, but there's not, I mean, this is on the web, right? But like in social media, it's difficult to have a connection with people. So this is kind of something we want to start doing either once a month or every other week, just to get
Mhm.
people together, that want to learn, that want to just talk about music. I mean, we could just talk about what we're listening to right now, and I'm sure we can introduce all new types of sounds to each other, even if that's what you get out of it. But if there's
Yeah,
any
cool.
specific thing you want to talk about, feel free to ask, and then we'll kind
I was
of.
just curious where you live and what your journey is, because I really don't know.
Yeah, okay. I can go through a little bit of that. So I'm in San Diego area. I'm in a little town called Carlsbad. Um, and and so oh, let me hold on one second. Walter is saying it was hard to sign in. So many people who signed up may not be joining. Okay, it was hard to sign in. Did anyone else have a hard time signing in?
No,
No.
no,
No?
I didn't actually really sign in. I just downloaded the Zoom app and I clicked on join meeting, and then I was here.
Okay. I'll let you know, Walter. I'll troubleshoot it afterward and see what's what. But yeah, so I live in Carlsbad. It's a small little beach town in California. My
Is that the
original
same? Is that the same Carlsbad where they made the Brilhart mouthpieces?
No, no, that there's another Carlsbad. I believe it's New Mexico or something like that.
Okay, okay.
I saw it, and it could be where, you know what? Let me look at these. Someone sent me a like a old newspaper clipping for about the Brillhart magazine, but maybe I'll look and see if it's here or because there is a Carlsbad, New Mexico. So it might be
Ah,
California.
okay.
I don't know. If it is, then I don't know the history. Ryan, do you know if it's the same? Because you're from around here.
I don't think so. I remember
Okay.
like I had like when I used to flip stuff, I had like 8 of them at one point. I looked into it and I think the answer was no.
Okay. Um, all right. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so I will continue my journey here. So I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Michigan. Actually, that's how I saw Eli. We connected a little bit. So I have a lot of friends who went to Michigan State, but I grew up in Detroit area. I went to Wayne State University, studied music there, and then partway through my college journey, I was like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to join the Army band. And so I auditioned for the Army band. That's kind of the connection me and Jeff have. We weren't in the Army at the same time, but it's kind of what brought us together probably, I don't know, 5 years ago at this point. And so I played in the Army band in Virginia. And I was stationed in Virginia and Hawaii, and I ended my career in Hawaii. Not a terrible gig, but I did get deployed for quite some time. I was deployed for 13 months in Iraq. And then once I got out, I had a really good friend. Some of you guys might know Reggie Padilla. He's a really great saxophone player out of Hawaii. Reggie and I are really close still, and we played in a band together. We started a band, and when I got out, I just was like, "What am I gonna do with my life?" other than go to college and finish college and stuff. And so music still was a part of my life. And then I went to grad school for to get my doctorate in physical therapy. And I stopped playing music for a long time. I hit a point of music where it was very much more of a dark place for me than a happy place. And probably about 8 years I took off. I would say about 8 to 10 years. And I had my first kid 7.5 years ago. Yesterday was her half birthday. That's, I mean, halfway through her seventh, yeah, year, whatever. We do funny stuff in our family. We celebrate half birthdays. Another story, another time. But and I had my daughter. Her name's Quinn, and I realized something was missing in my life, and I was like, it's music, it's creative, it's doing something creative, having an outlet of that. And that's when I started playing music again, and it completely transformed um my the way I was in the darkness I had been in. And honestly, it was I told myself before I started playing, I said I'm gonna do it different this time. I like intentionally said I want to play, I want to learn differently than how I used to learn, because a lot of what I did before was very theory based. I mean, like I told you, I went to college for it. Was very technical based. I wasn't focusing on learning with my ears. I wasn't focusing on transcribing. I wasn't focusing on writing, and singing and those types of things that can really develop you as a better musician. And so I started doing that. I started saying like, let me do it a different way, and I found it so much more enjoyable. So I wanted to that was the inspiration to start my YouTube channel, Positively Progressing, which has a lot of different meanings than just being positive and progressing through life. Um, and and so I wanted to try to use that knowledge that I had started gaining from how I was learning to share to other people. And that's probably why Jim, like a lot of my stuff is real succinct and little in bits and short bits. I try to explain things really easily because, as Jeff can probably agree with, um, sometimes the simpler the better. When you do simple things and learn simple ways, it's gonna stick. It's gonna be easier to like understand, and you're gonna be able to play it way better. So that's part of kind of my story. And then fast forward to now, I've probably been playing for probably a good 5 or 6 years, and I rarely miss a day of practice. At one point in time, I'd be in my car at night practicing, like with a soprano, because I couldn't make too much noise at our old house. Um, yeah, and I've just been really enjoying the journey. I've really embraced the struggle of, you know, playing every day, getting better, and around the pandemic time is when we kind of I had the idea of like, let me just write a 2.5 every day and see where this goes, and then it just kind of grew from there. Um, but yeah, I think the exploration of it all, and the twists and turns that I've taken in this musical journey has been some of the fun. And then also having a really cool community that's very supportive is also really encouraging and really appreciated.
Can I jump in and just say that because, like you say, that you give small information, it's easily digestible and it's really very doable. It makes it very obtainable. So I think that's going back to my thing about motivation, why I like getting the little bits that you give, or whether Reynolds gives it or whoever gives it. It's nice to get that. I can do that. That's just something a little bit. It's not so overwhelming that you just, I can't see the forest because there's too many trees in the way, kind of a
Right.
thing. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
more that's a good thing. I really like that too.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff's given me a bunch of stuff like that. Some of the things that he does, we hold on. I'm getting a little okay, can you hear me? Okay, I was getting a little echo. Yeah, Jeff's given me a couple things where let me just mute everyone real quick. Okay, I think we're good. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff's giving me a ton of stuff where it's like, oh, that's I think you gave me a little diatonic thing the other day, Jeff. Like we were talking about stuff when Jeff was out here in Newport Beach playing a gig, and we got to meet up and hang for a little bit, and he just what was that thing? Do you remember that thing you gave me that was just so nice, like in diatonic? It was like something like let me see if I can remember it real quick. Maybe you can play
Yeah,
it.
I think I
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
like um something nothing earth shattering, but like, we take a simple idea. Can everybody hear me okay? Sorry if the horn, I don't know, is trying anything. Anybody hear me?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So yeah, like taking like to excuse me, to Joel's point, right? Of like simple a simple idea, something as simple as a C major 7 chord, right? Right? That's an or any major 7 chord. That's enough to just spend weeks and months shedding all the different permutations of the inversions, rhythmic placement, um, but just kind of building upon that. So like taking that simple melody or shape, however, whatever we want to call it. But now we're going up to the 9, and then playing like a little. It's a diatonic pattern like from there. Right, and we've heard like Train does that a lot, like in the My Shining Hour solo. You guys know that one?
That's the one that comes to mind every time I hear that.
Gotta get in there. I've been listening to a lot of Joe Henderson lately, and Joe Henderson does that stuff. That's sort of like, yeah, it's either diatonic or chromatic, but I don't know. It was just something. But I mean, you can shed that for weeks, right? And it's just like I think it's easy for us to become very overwhelmed with all the stuff that you can do. And again, to another point of Joel's, like I've found Instagram to be mostly inspiring, but also kind of like, oh my God, this guy sounds amazing. Oh my God, another. But um, during the pandemic, I kind of refired up my own practice um, regiment and routine, and I mainly went back to transcribing just Instagram videos. Friends of mine, Sam Dillon's, some I'll transcribe John Ledbetter stuff on his little play test, or then like transcribe my heroes like Joel Fromm, Ben Wendell, stuff like that. Again, they're short, right? These posts are only like not 60 or 90 seconds long, so I found it to be particularly inspiring. But if you're just starting this journey, right, of jazz or music or improvising, you just have to start somewhere. You have to pick one thing, and you need to kind of do it to death. Do it, but in a way that you're going to be able to use it, right? That's the whole point, or one of the points of this whole thing is how can I use this piece of vocabulary, this piece of information and how do I incorporate it into my playing, right? And so that's when we kind of need to shift from like um the analytical mind of like, all right, how am I going to practice? What am I going to practice? To like the sort of scientific mind. All right, now where can I use this on this tune? Where can I use this on a blues? Where can I use this in an open, funk vamp or whatever, right? Because all of this information, um, I believe is ultimately expanding our vocabulary, right? Just like we're having a conversation here between the 8 of us that we've never had before, right? But all of us, or most of us, seem to be American, or very well in versed in English, and we have a gentleman from the Netherlands who seems to understand and speak English very well. I mean, that's so cool, right? Because we all have this grasp and understanding of this particular language, and I believe that improvising is the same. All right, so all that time in the shed um, is just trying to expand your vocabulary. All right, rant over. Sorry. Classic G
Jeff,
rant.
can I ask you a question, Jeff?
Yeah, please, Joel.
Do you find well, let me frame it this way. I find myself, just like you say, you find little lines and they speak to you, and not all lines do, but I'll find myself listening to something going, oh shit, that was a great line. And I go grab my horn and then you just work it and work it and work it and work it almost to the point where you're sick of it. And then you kind of forget about it. And then every now and then you kind of feel like it creeps back in somewhere. And it's not the same line. It's like you and that line
Exactly.
have kind of come together in some sort of subconscious way. And so that's where I kind of enjoy the knowing that I'm not going to probably play one of Chris's lines per se, but I'm going to play some derivative of that. And so I just kind of gravitate towards the lines that just speak to me, and I'll let all the other ones, that's okay. Somebody else might like those, but I don't,
I mean, Joel. I mean, exactly. I mean, look, you, the I don't believe the point of improvising is to sound like Chris Potter, or to sound like,
Right. Yeah.
that is not the point. That there is a point of transcription is such a big part. I believe. I think Chris and Ryan know how strongly I feel about transcribing. But it's mainly as a tool to develop your ear, right? To,
Hmm.
to to be able to hear certain things, like you said, hear something on a record, and then, like, run to the practice room, pull it up, figure it out, write it down if possible. I think is a good thing. If not, whatever. And then it's like you said, there's something about the line that strikes a chord with you. Maybe it's a voice leading thing, maybe
Hmm.
it's an intervallic thing, maybe it's any
Maybe it's the day you're having.
yeah, exactly. Maybe it's the day you're having. And so, yeah, it's like you
Yeah.
said, then you shed it. And I believe, like, you should come at it from as many different angles as possible, so that you can really kind of see how many possibilities are out there, so that
Right.
you can more readily incorporate it into your own playing. And then it's just, you're expanding your language, instead of, oh, i'm I gotta force this, like, really hot Chad LB lick that I you know
Mhm.
that I saw on Instagram, and then it doesn't come out. It's forced, you fall over yourself, and then you're just trying to sound like somebody else, and that is far from the point of any of this. um, and it just takes time. It takes time. That's why listening is so important, right? Like, I especially, like, with young saxophonists that I it's strange. So I have 2 kids. My son is 10. He just started. He's been playing saxophone for a year. And now different kids from the town, their parents are coming to me. Oh, I heard you teach. So I'm like, okay. And I'm kind of working with these young people, but I'm trying to tell them, it's like, you got to listen to the saxophone. You have to. If you want to play this instrument, you need to listen to to this instrument. And even with more advanced students, or anybody, like, it's just such an important part, because the things that you hear are in our head. But then there's the matter of, like, all right, I listen to all this music. That's great. But are you on your horn enough, right? So it's like I'm playing my music, listening to music, but I'm not really playing my horn. The more that we can kind of balance those scales, then the easier it is for you to kind of pull these things that you're hearing and incorporate it into your playing. And like, you know, I'm sure I'm not the only one that can speak to, you know, either you're on a gig or you're at a session and all of a sudden this stuff just comes out of your horn. It's like, because that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be this like, it's supposed to be this instantaneous organic thing where the ears are talking to the fingers and the brain and the heart, whatever you want to call it. And there's no real thinking at all, but you have to put that time in. That's the other thing. There's no real workaround unless you're one of those truly insanely gifted people that just seem to be able to do anything they want. So
Yeah, I totally like that assessment, Joel, is perfect of my learning process. And I almost had to tell myself like, hey, you're working on this one thing a lot. You can't expect it just to like be in your playing the next time you play. It's a series of like weeks, months, even 6 months where I was shedding this one thing where it was just just enclosures, right? Just like just doing enclosures in different ways, whether it's a normal kind of a a pretty basic enclosure of, you know, I don't know, just like something like that. Um, and then doing maybe more notes, but just getting something like that into your playing. I had to tell myself like, oh, you got to be patient. Like, yeah, you can play this stuff. You can play it all different ways. And I remember I was playing it. I have like on my board here all the different ways I played it and all the tempos I played it at. And I think I even no, I put it in my notebook. I put the date when I do it, like on the date and stuff. So, but I'll look back months ago and I'll be like, oh, okay, that's finally showing up. Like, okay, just it's almost like you have to have this level. And Jeff can probably speak to this better than anyone because he's one of the best musicians I've ever met. Um, you have to almost be patient, be more patient. The more that you're learning, the more kind of higher level, I guess, you're learning, or the more ways you're pushing yourself, you have to be so patient to just allow it to kind of seep into your subconscious, so it's not coming out like just like it's practiced, or it's like non-organic. You want that to come out organically, and it takes so much time for that to come out organically. um, I wanted to get to Walter's question in the chat. He asked about the 2-5 workbook, and this is not a sales thing, so I don't want you guys to. I'm happy to give some pages of the 2-5 workbook away um, to you guys, and I have in the past for the people following on the on the newsletter. But I just want to show this kind of ties into what Joel was asking and then what Walter's asking about. But I want to show you just something real quick on the 2-5 notebook here. Let me just go ahead and share my screen, and then I'll go here. Here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. All right. So let's take this line right here. So this is the 2-5 notebook, or workbook, excuse me. I don't even know the name of my own book. And this is something I thought would be really cool. I thought of an idea of why not make, and for all the older people in here like myself, we probably remember Mad Libs. I don't know if Mad Libs is a big thing for you, Eli. You're in college, so do you know what Mad Libs is?
Yeah, I used to do it as a kid, but not
Oh,
not
sweet. Okay. So this is like Mad Libs for improvisation, or just like if you want to. And the reason I wrote this is because I find that there's a lot of different ways you can create a line. And with my 2-5s, and this is Joel had said something about this, like I don't a lot of the times I wouldn't want all of you learning a 2-5 that I play, and like I'm learning a 2-5 that Sonny Rollins plays, and then I'm going to probably learn that in all 12 keys and try to do it like him, but then I'm going to try to make it my own. And a lot of the lines I write, it's a lot of them might not even like, you know, reach to you to a point where you want to learn it. That's okay. But if it gives you an idea of like how you can use your own language, that's the more important thing to get out of it. And so the 2-5 workbook is kind of that way. And you can see there's like number 6 here, and I'm just going to speak in the key that you see there. So like you can see the takeaways. Like I write like, okay, the line starts on the 7th. Notice how the 7-3, how the 7-3 resolution works. So what are we doing there? Okay, so the 7-3 resolution is from this, the 7th here, and we're resolving it to the 3 of the D here. So I put that at the and of 1 and then the beat 3. That's where the resolution's happening. Everything in between is the A minor arpeggio, right? And then on the G major, I write 4-note ending. And in the beginning of the book, there's, you know, there's a suggestion of like, hey, the endings are just suggestions. They're not like, you don't have to do this. But if I were to make up a line with this, and like this is where you can fill it in. I usually do it on my tablet. I don't think I have the ability to mark this up here. I might actually. It might not look great, but let me see if I can color on this thing. Oh, okay, I can. So if I made a line like this, that's awful. Oh my gosh. That's terrible. But let's say I'm just gonna write on here. So I'm gonna make this. Oh, I can't. How do I do this? Sorry, I didn't test this out. I wasn't expecting this question, but let's see. Okay, I can't write as freely as I normally do with my so let's say I just did this. If I did this line and I just went chromatically down from the F sharp, and that's going to take me to the 5 of G. Okay, so if I did this line, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that just took, I just went chromatically down by eighth notes, F sharp, F natural, E flat, and then I landed on the D here. And then if I want to make a 4-note ending, I could maybe do one of those arpeggio or one of those enclosures I was just talking about. So I could maybe go right. So I that on that one I went D, I went down to A, and then C, and then I enclosed the B, and I ended on B. I could do a different enclosure where I could maybe go from D, jump down to F sharp, go up to A, and then land on G, so I can get this sound. So the whole line would sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. So nothing mind-blowing there, but the idea of this book is to explore the different lines that you take. So that was all kind of a descending shape, right? So we went down on the A minor 7. We still went down in a descending direction on the D7, and then we still were kind of going in a descending direction on the G. But what if we went up, for the D7? Maybe we created a different sound here, and went ascending and then landed. Maybe I go up to this, end up going to the C on D7, like make my way up to that C, and then resolve to the 3 of G major. So something like this. Right? Something like that. And I just use like a 1, 2, 3, 5, not in major, but 1, 2, 3, 5 pattern in the D7. So I went F sharp, G, A, C, and then did a resolution to the B of G. And then I can create another 4-note ending or create any note ending I want. And if you want to start adding alterations in there, you could totally do that too, right? So I could maybe I could do instead of that same line I just talked about, F sharp, G, A, C, and then resolve to the B. What if I played an A sharp or a B flat, which would add some other color, right? And maybe sound a little out, maybe make your ears perk up a little bit. Right? So you hear that? Right, and so it adds a little bit of color, but nothing. It's not too crazy, and it's also making me play something I've never played before. Like that felt weird, Like I was like, oh, that feels weird. I usually don't do that. I usually probably would do something like this. Right. I might go like up to that. I might like to use that A sharp or B flat in a different way. Right. I'm just kind of floating through and feeling out what I like to hear. So this isn't my overall point is that this book is meant to, and this is more for Walter because he asked the question. This book is really meant to push you outside your comfort zone, give you starting points. Like even if we look at the next one, this next one, D7 here, excuse me, D minor 7 to G7, this is really starting out with, I'm making you start out with an enclosure. And what can you do with that? Um, and this also, going back up to 6, I don't have to play all eighth notes here. I can play a quarter note triplet to fill up those 2 beats, right? So maybe something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I went ahead of myself. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So I just went B. Wait, I played the eighth notes again. Sorry. I know what I'm trying to play. I can't play it for some reason. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so there's the quarter note triplet. Za ba ba do B ba do D, and I just resolved to the B, the third of the G. So, yeah. So I hope that's clear, Walter, and for anyone else that's hopefully that was clear enough. Apologize for the mistakes. I'm not the I'm not the best performer here. But that's why we work at it, right? Um, any
Can I
questions
jump
on
in,
that?
Chris? And kind
Yeah,
of,
man. Yeah.
yeah. So, um, yeah, the 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 book is great. Like, I mean, one of the things that I'll use with students is I'll have them write out, just write out random lines, like if you write out 10 random lines, I bet you 1 out of the 10 is going to sound cool or have a sound that you like. But the habit of writing these things out and exploring like different shapes and exploiting different sounds, like vertical playing, outlining chord tones, using chromaticism, all these different things is really what's going to lead you, again, putting that scientist hat on. Explore. There are there are so many different sounds that are accessible to us. And another great analogy that kind of ties into the book and also into the Olympics that we have, that we're experiencing right now. So imagine yourself as a gymnast, all right? And your 251 is like, it's one of the tumbling passes in your floor routine. So if we were to lean into the book, right, you're gonna start off running, then you're gonna do a bunch of twists and turns in the air. What's the most important part about the whole like pass is the landing, right? Are these gymnasts sticking the landing, or are they falling? Are they falling out of bounds? So if if we lean into that, right? So and I'll often do this with my students. I'll have them work backwards. So finding a resolution that you like, right? Any sort of half step resolution from the 5 chord to the downbeat of the 1 chord is going to be very, very impactful. It's going to have a strong effect. So, like, to go back to that first line, it it almost doesn't matter what gets played when you're doing your twists and your turns. It's like, how do you land it? terrible examples, but hopefully you guys kind of start thinking about like we have there's so much freedom that we have on dominant chords, even like or even on the two chord. You know, like again, be a scientist, explore sonic possibilities, or even and then you know once you kind of get your footing and feel confident about like all right, I feel strongly that I can nail some pretty straight up right, that's a pretty straight up 2/5. Right, you practice that for a couple weeks, all 12 keys, all different, right? Half steps, how about whole steps? Yada yada, cycle forward. And then you start, you know, then we start adding different notes like Chris was kind of talking about. Right, that one note, that one altered note, again, perks your ears up, adds a different color. Are we a painter? We're painters here, right? So the painting that I can create sonically is going to be a direct parallel to the amount of paints that I have on my palette, right? So maybe that first, you know, bo 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 be de bo dee doo da, that diatonic 2/5, that's all primary colors, right? But then I can start mixing some of those colors up, and now I have a green, and now I can add a little bit more, you know, again, color, sonic color to these things. So maybe that that metaphor of a gymnast is helpful to you guys. You know, it's been helpful to me. You know, that's for sure. And yeah, again, explore, be scientists. I encourage you to do that.
Yeah, and to reiterate, something that, you know, something that speaks to you and sounds good to you is always worth the exploration of that sound. Um, you know, I hope that makes sense because your ears are all of our tastes. We all have tastes. We all have style, right? We all have a different palette. Um, and that's what makes us all unique in my mind, is our different tastes and our different styles. And there's we can all say, like, you know, Miles Davis and Clifford Brown, two amazing trumpet players, some two of my favorites. And let's throw Roy Hargrove in there too, because those are three of my favorites. Um, all of them have completely different sounds, right? They have, like, Clifford Brown and Miles Davis aren't on the spectrum of like mastery. Yeah, they're all the way to the top. But on the where their style is, I would say there's not much in the Venn diagram of Clifford Brown's playing and Miles Davis's playing. There's not a huge middle portion that's overlapping. What do you think, Eli? Do you agree with that as
Yeah,
our trumpet player?
I think that's a fair interpretation for anybody. The thing that I'm been looking at mostly when I look at different players, especially players that aren't trumpet based, like any sax or piano players I transcribe, is more of their phrasing and less of their specific note choices. Um, I don't know if that's necessarily the most effective approach, but that's at least what I've been working on to try and understand the differences that you just outlined with the Venn diagram metaphor.
Yeah, and so when you say you're when you're transcribing them and looking at phrasing, what more specifically, like, are you looking at? Like how much space they're leaving when they're coming in, like what, those types of things.
Yeah, so the first solo that I ever transcribed was Miles Davis on Oleo. And if you look at the first phrase that he plays, right, he plays a phrase that's a 2-bar phrase and then he copies it and repeats it and then leaves space at the end of the fourth bar. And if you look through the entire solo, everything that he plays leaves space in the fourth bar, somewhere at the end, except for like two strands where he plays two lines, which are still 8-note phrases across 8 bars. So that's what got me really into looking at that, because I thought, oh well, a lick is a lick, like there's no difference. You just play it and copy and insert. But then when I started looking at the solo, like when I transcribed it, I put it so I could see 4 bars at a time going down the page, and I just saw an entire line of space just going down the right side of the page. So then I tried to start constructing my own lines in the same way that you've been talking about today, trying to put spaces intently at the end, and rather than trying to play the line, play the space.
Yeah,
And some players like Clifford Brown don't do that necessarily. It's just straight bop, and that's a completely
right.
different. But yeah.
Totally. I got a cool practice thing for you, or for everyone actually. So a couple years ago, it actually started back up this year. It's called the Inside Outside Retreat, with Bob Reynolds, Bob Heminger, and Bob. Which Bob am I forgetting? Oh, Bob
Franceschini.
Franceschini. Yeah, Bob Franceschini. How could I forget that, Bob? That guy is amazing. Um, Sorry, Bob Franceschini, you'll never see this, but I apologize to you anyways because you are a wonderful person. And so Chris Cheek was the guest artist that year, and Chris Cheek talked about phrase mapping. Have you ever checked that out, Eli? Phrase mapping? Well, for anyone who hasn't talked or know what phrase mapping is, let's take for instance a 12-bar blues. So let's just think of it how Eli had it set up: 4 bars for 3 lines. And what Chris was saying is, put a random X on a bar. You could roll a die if you want. You could flip a coin, whatever. But just you could pick, let's say 4 bars. Let's say you cross out the first bar, the sixth bar, the seventh bar, and the ninth bar of the blues. So you cannot play on those bars, right? You cannot, no matter what, you can't do it. So when you go from the 12th bar of the blues, which is typically like the 5, we're going back to the 1, right? You can't resolve it. You have to end your idea on that 12th bar because we've crossed out bar number 1. And you should all try this in some capacity, but it will change the way that you start phrasing, because maybe you pick 4 bars, maybe you pick 5, maybe you pick 3. And it could be something as easy as play 2 bars, take 1 bar off, play 2 bars, take 1 bar off. But that's going to start changing your phrasing too, right? Like, because you got only 2 bar segments, you have to take the third bar off. You can play the 1 to the 4 chord, right? But then you have to take that second 4 chord off, which a lot of people like to use as like a diminished kind of sound there to get them back to the 1. So if you haven't tried that, I phrase mapping is really fun. And you could even it's basically restricting your practice to make you have more creativity within the space that you give yourself. And restricting practice, you should all do this at some point in time with your practice, is when you start restricting yourself more, you allow yourself to have more creativity. And what I mean by that is, sometimes restrictions can come in the form of what we just talked about. But then also, you can restrict how many notes you play on a bar. Like maybe you're only allowed to play the third and the fifth, or the first and the fifth of each bar, and you have to get really creative with rhythm. Or maybe you can play whatever notes you want, but you can only play specific rhythms. So there's different ways to restrict your practice that allow you the opportunity to express yourself in certain ways and explore new ways to play. And I find that to be a really, really beneficial thing for me in the practice room, because I feel like that's when I'm growing the most. That's when I'm learning the most, and really pushing my limits by restricting. And that was the main key point that Chris Cheek was expressing when he was teaching us about this phrase mapping. There was a couple other things I'm happy to share that he gave us, but that was one of the things that was really impactful, and that was 5 years ago. And I still use it to this day. It's an amazing way to get through material and through tunes.
Is another benefit to what you just said, by like not playing on a bar, also creating that tension and release, not just for the player, but for the listener too, because if those random bars are empty and people are like, you just stop the story for a second, and then it's almost like it makes you lean in, and then you're also, by not playing, sometimes, at least I find myself saying too much on the horn, and sometimes
Yeah.
telling myself, take the mouthpiece out of your mouth, take it out,
Right.
and
I
stop.
think
There's a
yeah, I think
tension,
there's
and then when you start playing again, the release is there, and you can take off again.
I think you nailed it there, Joel. Yeah, it's well, I think that's one of the reasons why Miles, to me, is such an interesting player is he does as much with the space that he does with the time he's playing, right? And I believe I can't remember, maybe Jeff, you know this, is like I think it was like Coltrane. I think Coltrane was like asked him, the famous quintet. He was like, "Oh, how do I stop playing so many notes?" And Miles was just like, take the horn out of your mouth. I think it was he was saying that to Coltrane. Is that right, Jeff? Do you know? Can you check me on that history? You don't know? I'm pretty sure that's a story. I'm pretty sure Miles said it was a little more vulgar than that, but you know, like, but
There's
yeah,
a
so I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying there. I think there's another Miles line that I always way love too, about there is no wrong notes if you don't stay on it long enough.
Right. Or I think he just says there are no wrong notes, right?
There are no wrong notes. Yeah,
Don't
but
be
yeah,
afraid of mistakes. There are none.
that's right.
But Miles is at that level of mastery where he'll play a sharp 11 straight up and just sit on it, and it sounds beautiful because the way he plays it, maybe the way he's entering, maybe what beat he's starting it on. Um,
Maybe
yeah,
the confidence, maybe just the strict
oh yeah,
confidence of his playing. He was able to
yes.
sell it, and
He's so
it
yeah.
made it great.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean that it doesn't it almost literally doesn't matter what you say. What's more important is how you say it, right? Like, are you confident? Are you playing with conviction? Now, I think it certain scenarios it does matter. Like, if you're a working musician and you want to continue working, you're probably going to play according to the gig if you want to continue getting called for, said gig. If I get called for a club date, I'm not going to rip like late Coltrane stuff on Aretha Franklin's Respect. I'm not going to get called back, right? Vice versa. Like, if I'm doing like or I don't know, if I'm doing like a cocktail jazz thing, I'm not gonna play burning stuff super loud that's gonna, piss, the wedding planner off, gonna piss the bride off, stuff like that. So, like, to a certain extent, what you play matters, but how you play, I believe, matters more. But this is all great stuff. Like, again, like, if I'm gonna keep beating this drum, like, for you guys when you go back and practice, like, be try to be aware of what's going on, because it is way too easy for us to just fall into practicing and playing our same shit over and over and over and over and over again, and then saying, oh yeah, I practiced for like 2 hours today, but really all I was doing was playing the same stuff that I've always been playing on the same tune, on the same whatever. So, like, set these limits. Do, like, like form mapping. Say, all right, I'm only gonna play. I give yourself like an interval limit. Try doing that. Try playing a chorus on a tune that you think but you can only play like an octave, and that's a lot. You can't play your lines because you can't go past an octave. You can't play your normal stuff. And any amount of time that we can spend forcing ourselves, right? Forcing ourselves in practice, I believe, is very different from forcing like a lick on a gig or whatever it is that you have going on. Forcing yourself to, you know, we're forcing creativity, but in a practice session, I think that's very healthy, right? Because it's too easy not to. It's too easy to, like I said, to just get caught up in the stuff that you're doing, right? Or like how um are you able to look at your playing and identify your weaknesses? Do you know what your weaknesses are? Do you believe that you have no weaknesses? I doubt it. I know I have a ton of weaknesses, so I spend my time working on the things that I need to get better at, because I'll always be good at the things that I'm good at, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So the you know when practice time is such a premium, right? With everything that every individual has going on in their individual lives, making the most out of whatever time that you're able to set aside for practice, I believe should be on hard things.
What you don't know.
What you don't know, or even what
Yeah,
you do
exactly.
know,
Yeah.
or what you think you know, right? Like, that's another thing.
Finding a
That's
trouble area.
reflection. That's reflection, man. That's looking, like, being honest with yourself and looking in the mirror, right? Recording yourself, listening, taking notes, right? We have so much technology at our fingertips right now that I think it's easier than ever to make growth, right? But it takes a certain mental um kind of it takes a certain
Honesty.
amount.
Maybe
Yeah,
being
yeah,
honest
yeah.
with yourself.
Thank you, Joel. Yeah, it takes a certain amount of integrity and honesty with yourself to 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 realize where are those chinks in your armor, right? And I wrote a blog for Chris's website called Bulletproof Practicing a while ago. And I'd be happy to, or I'm sure I'd be happy to get that out and share it again if anybody be interested. It's I'll just a
I'll put
longer
a link. I'll put a link
form rant
in the chat.
in writing, but um, yeah, to this point, anything that gets us out of our usual thing, because all that stuff is going to help us when we're out there again in the real world. Hey,
Hold on.
is
Yeah.
Walter still on? Because
Yeah,
Walter,
yeah, Walter's still on. I thought if you guys all want to put maybe something that you are struggling with in the chat, and then if like I said, we're gonna try to do this monthly or every other week, and when we next time we check in, we can talk about those things. Like something I find myself always wanting to work on as what Jeff said, a chink in my armor is my time. I'm very much I want my rhythm and my time feel to be like so rock solid. So that's one thing that I'm constantly working on, pushing myself to get better at. And currently I'm doing a lot of things where I'm having to play 3/4 rhythms over 4/4, which is pushes my limit in my time and making sure that I know where one is. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm working on. If you guys want, feel free to write in the chat, and you don't have to do this, but then when we have these sessions, we can kind of check in and say, okay, oh, how's that like for me, how's that time thing going? I could be like, yeah, it's going pretty good. I've been playing with Philly Joe Jones and Elvin and Art Taylor and whoever else, and like just trying to keep my time with them because I know those guys are crushing it. So, and I don't know if you guys do this, but something I have been doing recently or for a while now, but is playing just with recordings that are, even if they have other stuff going on, like even if Miles is playing or Red Garland's playing or whoever, it's really good to be able to play with those drummers in that rhythm section, because it's really hard to find a rhythm section like that these days, especially if you're playing at home, Joel, or you're out in, you're not gigging, or you're just you don't have that opportunity. So I find that being kind of fun. And then with Drum Genius, man, Drum Genius, you get some samples of some really great drummers, even though it's on a loop. um it's it's pretty cool to still play with those. Jeff, were you going to address something with Walter?
Yes, I was gonna try to.
Okay.
Understanding that we're all at different levels um, of of playing experience, but so the comment was all the discussion up to that point seems advanced, trial and error, wishing there was a beginner course that you could recommend. So Walter, if you can hear me, um, you know, the beginner's course, the beginner's course is GV's transcription school. So I all right, let me see. So if you guys don't know, I'm in the Army. I work at West Point. I've been a member of the West Point band here in New York for 11 years. And for about 6 years, I ran a jazz club for cadets at the academy. We get together once or twice a month, and I would teach these young people, college level kids that were not music majors, right? They're at the academy, become commissioned officers and leaders of soldiers. But they either played jazz in high school and they wanted to keep it going. So I made it hard on them. I said, so Walter, if you were a cadet, if you were a cadet George, and you showed up at Sergeant Vidal's jazz forum, the spiel you would get from me on day one was, all right, you want to learn how to play jazz. That's great. All right, so let's put our time machine hat on and let's go back in time 70 years, 60 years to the 1950s. Pretend it's 1954. All right, it's August 4th, 1954. Well, we're not on Zoom. We don't have phones. We don't have YouTube. We don't have the internet. We have saxophones. We have recordings. We have people playing music. So the beginner's course is training your ear. It's ear training. It's understanding this again. Like if you heard me talk about the music as a language, you just as you whatever your native language is, if it's English, do you remember how you learned how to speak English? It was hearing your parents or your siblings or your family members saying phrases over and over again, and then you emulated those sorts of like you know uh, inflection points, accents, and you learned how to build vocabulary, and then you were introduced to an alphabet. How many letters in the alphabet? There's 26. Well, as beginning musicians, we're not always introduced to all 12 of the notes of the chromatic scale, right? We're like a bunch of notes are left out. It's like one of the biggest issues I have with music education as I have as a father for a son that's trying to play. So what did I do? Yeah, I had my son learn his chromatic scale. Like, yeah, dude, like figure out what these all these other notes are. So then to get back to it, Cadet George or Miss or Walter, if 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 some of the conversation has been a little bit over your head, I think starting on a very very basic understanding of what a 2-5-1 is, because if you can understand a 2-5-1 and how it works harmonically and foundationally speaking, you'll be able to understand music at a very profound level. And I think you can create a lot of music just with chord tones. So I would hope that you know what chord tones are. I would hope that everybody on this chat knows what chord tones are, but you can create a lot of music with chord tones. And then another added benefit of chord tones is when you're able to become confident with chord tones, you are conveying confidence in the roadmap of the song. right? The harmonic framework of the song to your listener, to your bandmates, right? There's a lot of responsibilities that are involved here with music. There's personal responsibility, right? There's group responsibility. Um, and the more confident that you can be with the information that you're dealing with, whether it's just with yourself or it's with a band, um, the more confidently you can speak, the quicker you'll be able to feel that you have that basics like down, right? But like there's just an immense amount of time, unfortunately, that has to be spent with that, that basic level, which I would say just like triads. Do you know all your major, minor, diminished, augmented triads? Do you know all of them in all 12 keys? Can you play them like that? Can you play them in all 3 inversions? Right? Like, the answer may be yes, the answer may be no, the answer may be, well, let me hear it. And often when I'll do that with a student with varying levels of experience, they will, it's a great exercise to be like, all right, let me hear major triads and first inversions ascending chromatically. Let me hear it. And you'll either, if it's something that somebody has been dealing with or spent time dealing with, then it'll come out, right? And as it should. Right, but right. So what's the point of that? Am I going to use that as in an improvisation? Maybe I'm gonna, maybe. But anyway, I know I'm going on a tangent. That's what I do. But the example is that is a simple bit of information, or even go root position. Right? All 12 keys, entire range of the horn. Like, can you do that? Do you know your minor triads? Right? Because if you know your minor triads and you know your major triads, you can play a 2-5-1. Hey, that should be the 2-5-1 that everybody learns. The first one, right? It's
I'll write it. I'll write one up.
So Walter, maybe that's the beginner course. Major triads, minor triads, put them together, hear what a 2-5-1 kind of sounds like, and then, hopefully, again, scientists you can kind of trial and error. You said it. You can kind of create some language for yourself.
And I think GV touched on it earlier, transcribing will get some of those sounds in your ear. If you focus on transcribing as even the most beginning type of transcribing, maybe GV, you could put a couple of suggestions down for a good transcription. I think like Pafrancing, Miles Davis is a good maybe beginner transcription. There's so many like really, really great solos that don't necessarily use a lot of notes. And this is going to kind of segue me into talking about what Sergey asked. Sergey asked about telling a story when improvising. Um, I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit around that because I feel your no, not necessarily your pain, but like I feel the struggle with this sometimes. And I think that in telling a story, there's a lot of things involved, right? We have to think about phrasing, we have to think about notes, we have to think about not just like playing licks and inserting like lick here and then inserting lick there. But some of the other things that to consider about telling a story may not have to do with licks at all. It can be, are you playing dynamics? You know, are you starting maybe a solo out quiet? Are you starting it out loud? Because that's going to start your story. You know, you know, so think about the other thing, the other elements. Are you starting out with maybe if you are soloing right after someone finishes, are you starting with what they just played? Are you re-quoting them? Is that how you're setting up your solo? Or maybe you're setting up a solo where it's just one note or a lot of notes, and then you're building it off there. But to speak, try to speak more specifically about telling a story. I'm going to go back to what I said about all of us and how we are stylistically. Um, in terms of who we are as a musician and how we tell our own story. So Jeff and I, if you gave us the same tune, we're going to play two completely different solos, and we're going to tell two different stories. Um, his story might be a lot more elaborate than mine, meaning he might have more notes, more range of the instrument. Mine might be a little bit more simple, but not necessarily, we're not comparing better or worse. It's just different, right? Maybe mine's more like a kid's story and his is like a novel written by uh, whatever, Tolkien or something, you know. I mean, his is more like Lord of the Rings and mine's like Cat in the Hat. Um, you know, but my overall point is we can use different ways to tell stories. That could be a mix of dynamics, it could be a mix of phrasing, it could be a mix of rhythmic component, using harmonic possibilities like substitutions and things like that. Um, and there's also different ways to connect one line to the next line. And I think that's really powerful in telling the story. Am I giving you good information, Sergey, or is this all?
That's absolutely, yeah, yeah. This is really helping.
So
And how
sometimes,
do I
yeah, go ahead.
connect one line to another? Because as I said in the chat, I always end
Hmm.
up trying to plug in that great sunny stip lick that I just practiced, and
Yeah,
either it's gonna go completely wrong and you're gonna end up on a non-chord note where you want to end up on a chord note and it's gonna sound like crap, or it sounds like, yeah, you're kind of shoehorning in that lick. It doesn't sound
right.
like you're visually, organically improvising on a song.
So I think you were coming in when we kind of discussed this a little bit. What we talked about was very much like you have to kind of let something, like let's say you're talking about a Sonny Stitlick and you're working on it, working on it, and then you kind of like, let's say it's March, right? And then now August rolls around and you're like, wow, like that Sonny Stitlick just kind of made it back into my playing without me really thinking about it. And sometimes these things take a long time for them to organically show up in our playing. I bet you might not know this, but I bet something you've been practicing for like the last year, I bet slowly crept into your playing and is more natural than it did a year ago, if you really think about it.
Mm.
But let me ask you this question, because this is something one of my favorite teachers ever asked me. He's like, "Are you listening to what you just played before you played? Like the idea you just played, did you listen to the idea that you played before that idea?" Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Because you
probably
can,
don't. No. Hmm.
and I don't know if a lot of people do. It was a completely eye-opening thing for me where he told me, think about what you just played, whether it's the rhythm, whether it's the notes, whether it's whatever it is, it's the, you know, the articulation. Think about how can you make that, how can you tie that into the next thing that you say? Because, you know, I'm not telling you like this is what a solo might sound like if you're not telling a story. And this is speaking like, okay, I went to the grocery store. I saw a giraffe. I went down a water slide, right? None of those things go together, right? Like I just named three different things that like none of those things happen in the same place. Like nobody goes grocery shopping at the zoo or a water park, right? Um, but we when we're talking, like we're having this conversation, every sentence has to do with the previous sentence. And with music, that's it's the same way. and then you might start a new paragraph, and maybe that's halfway through the course, or maybe it's 4 bars in, but those first 4 bars were related to each other, and then maybe the next 4 bars is a new paragraph, a new idea, but it's all so in a literary standpoint, like actual literature, if you think of it in those terms, you can get a lot out of it. There's other techniques called have you heard of like rhythmic rhyming? Have you ever heard of that
Yeah,
saying?
it rings a bell vaguely somewhere. Yeah.
So rhythmic rhyming is like here. I'll give you like so if I take like the first 2 bars of it could happen to you, right? And we have like so it could happen to you is like I'll speak in tenor key. Actually, I'll speak in concert key. We have E flat major, and then we go to E diminished, right? So it's like that. So it's like and then we go to an F minor 7, right? So if I were to do like a rhythmic rhyming thing just off those first 2 bars, I'm going to use the same rhythm, but I'm going to use different notes. So if I do this rhythm, so like right? So then I did the first 4 bars of rhythmic rhyming. So I went beep baboto, ba baboto, beep da da do, and I just use that same rhythm. So it's linking to the next one, and it doesn't have to be 1 bar. It can be a 2 bar thing. It can just be the ending of a line. Like if you play a line and you end it a certain way, like if I were to play. Right. So I ended one line
Yeah.
one way, but I started the next line the same exact way I ended it. So they're linked in that way. And this is something that I practice like in this studio, and I practice it a lot to like try to link my playing. It's not something I'm thinking about consciously when I'm gigging or when I'm playing in a live setting. It's something that will eventually just settle into uh into your kind of your subconscious as Joel as we touched earlier, that kind of naturally will happen. Um
Yeah. So this is
and
something. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
no, go.
But
You're
this is
good.
in the practice room. So you would practice this very deliberately and probably very slowly, like playing a
Yes.
lick, listening very carefully. What am I playing? What notes am I using? What rhythm is this? Now, what would be an appropriate response? And then you start working that out. And at a certain point, it comes out, through your subconsciousness, actually,
Very organic.
basically.
Yeah. It'll come through much more
Okay.
organically in that way. And I might not even be practicing a specific lick. Like a lot of the times, like you guys have seen a lot of the lines I've written, right? I don't play a lot of that stuff. I use my composition of those is like me slowing down myself. Like you said something really important there is slowly going through this. And I actually even won't even go through an entire tune like this. I might take a tune and just break it into 4 bar chunks or 8 bar chunks. I won't go through an entire tune because I, I for me, I don't know what I'm doing on bar 30 compared to what I'm doing on bar 1. But if I do 8 bars, I can go through 8 bars and be like, okay, I can be honest with myself. Another theme of today's talk, that I kept a similar theme from bar 1 and 2 through bar 7 and 8, or
Nice.
similar type of ideas. And so then I might stick on those 8 bars, and then I'm like, okay, those 8 bars feel good. Let me see what the next 8 bars feel like, and what comes of it. And then I might do bars 1 through 16, and then do the same thing. So it's a very much a process. It's a slow process, but I find that doing that really helps me connect with my horn. It helps me learn tunes more, and then it also, for me, it's I'm using it to become more melodic and more deliberate with what I'm saying versus just that one of the other things Chris Cheek said at camp was the saxophone is a dangerous instrument. It's got all these buttons. We can wiggle our fingers super fast, and and I always found that funny. I was like, yeah, it is kind of a dangerous instrument. You can kind of get away with a lot with this thing if you're not too careful. And so that's why I make it very deliberate in when and why and when I do those things. And it's fun too. Like not that I'm looking for compliments, but I had a friend come over and he's a really great saxophone player, and he's just like, man, I just love the way that you are always so melodic and always have like a statement. And I found that to be like a really nice compliment because that's kind of like what I'm going for. So it's like, wow, someone can hear that. That means whatever I'm doing is working. Um, but that's not to like toot my own horn, but it's just to say like this is the way I work on things, and if you're looking to do something like that, I hope it can help you.
Could I touch on that
It
a little
also
bit, Chris?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Very good. I was just gonna say I've been thinking with everything you guys have been talking about for the past hour. I think a good general statement for all of this is you want to be able to play as many different variations of an idea as possible, of which there's an infinite number, right? So if like you like the general things, like like if you know your scales, like I can play like from 1 to 1 up and down like all 12 keys. Like, do you know them? Like how many different musical ways can you very slightly and intentionally, like Chris was saying, alter it to make it into a different idea? And then if you go like 5 steps past that, something I've done for a long time and still really helpful, if I learn a lick, a variation could be learning it in all different keys. Like that's one that people preach pretty regularly. But how many different ways can you vary that lick and still make it fit in the context of whatever song you're playing? Maybe you learn that Sunny Stit lick and it really does not work over some other tune you're trying to play. How can you change that lick to make it fit, to have it make sense? So the more you go through that process where you are like manually changing something, you're working those creative muscles where you're like, I want to change this. I'm going to change this rhythmically. I'm going to leave space. I'm going to change the dynamics. Or you very intentionally think, I want to insert this pattern here and here. The more you do that with any concept you practice, the more you can start to relegate this stuff to your subconscious, and then you just play. And you're not consciously thinking about it. When you're talking about like connecting lines, like something I still do now is like if I'm really warmed up, I've been playing for a few hours and I'm thinking, okay, I've been doing a lot of stuff in the key of F. Let me just kind of like go through random ideas. You find an idea you like, and then I'll vamp off that and be like, how many different ways can I possibly play this? And what context? Like if I'm thinking this would be cool over this, this would be cool over this, this would be cool over this, and try to like interconnect as many things as possible. That's how I kind of think about stuff.
Joel,
Thanks.
what were
It's
you
a lot of cool stuff, guys.
yeah, thanks, Sergey. Yeah, Joel, what were you talking? What were you gonna fill in there?
Well, I was just going to say that I thought I hear what you say too about your rhythmic mimicking within your own solo is a little like whenever you are listening to a bandmate finish a solo and you may steal that last little line before to start yours off. So you're basically doing it with yourself.
Exactly.
You're repeating that last little motive, but you're just doing it with yourself more. And I kind of thought that seems like that's the example that at least hit with me. It's like, oh, well, we do it with our friends when we play, but we don't ever do it with ourselves.
Totally.
So.
That's it. That's actually how I kind of started out. I think you might have stepped away. That's how I started out. I was like, sometimes your story might be starting out with the last person's line, leading off
Which
that,
is our conversation. This is what we do with our conversations.
It's one of my favorite things that I hear people do, either on a live recording or if I'm in a concert or if I'm at a jam session. I would do that. I mean, I would do that every single time. People would be sick of me by the time we get done with the jam or whatever. But I'm like, I find that to be such a wonderful organic way. Because if you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna play this over this bar, then I'm gonna play this over that bar, then I'm gonna do this here. If you're going in with a plan, you're already kind of setting yourself up for failure. If you start out and I think some of my what I find to be my favorite solos I've ever played have started so simple where it's like the one guy before me or gal before me is just like be da bu da ba or whatever, and then I start be ba bu da ba, and then I just go ba ba bu dee ba, and then I'm just ba ba do ba ba ba, like, and I'm just slowly adding on to this idea and slowly building it versus trying to get in there and just rip just straight
You have
away
nowhere to go.
Right, yeah, and we talked about that. We talked about dynamics. We talked about like maybe
Yeah.
note density, if you will. Like we can call it note density. You know, are you playing a lot of notes? You playing a little bit of notes? You know, are you going through Tad Dameron substitutions and Coltrane changes like over Bye Bye Blackbird or whatever? You know, what I mean, like are you inserting all this harmonic complexity right away? Like that's good. Where are you going to go from there? You're gonna yeah, it's like you have to. So in telling a story. I think it's an art, obviously. This whole thing is an art, but I think there's like I was saying to you before, Sergey, I think there's a way to deliberately make that so that that becomes more natural. And then those higher level things that honestly I don't quite fully understand Coltrane changes. Like I can play Coltrane changes like in a tune, but I don't think I can substitute it. Like I can tell you that right now. I will not be able to substitute Coltrane changes just in my solo and just be okay with that. I'll leave that to GV, Ryan Devlin, and all those other cats that are just mastering it like so well. Um, and maybe someday I'll be there with up there with Steve Cortica and GV and all those cats blowing my mind. But I enjoy listening to it, and I think even that kind of I was going to say this earlier. Even if you don't fully understand what's happening, Walter, for you or for anyone else that's beginning or starting to go on this journey of improvisation, if you're listening to a lot of really good stuff, you're already learning. You don't know you're learning, but you're already learning. There was a study that was done, this is years and years ago now, of musicians that were learning how to improvise, and half of the subjects went to sleep with music playing with like Coltrane, Miles Davis, you know, Charlie Parker, Dizzy, and half of the subjects were not going to sleep with music. And the ones that were going to sleep with music were able to leaps and bounds. I don't remember the figures, but they had a significant increase in their ability to adapt to the language they were learning via improvisation over the ones who weren't listening. So there was even proof that listening when you're sleeping, so like you're not even actually conscious of active listening, it has helped. So if you're active listening every day, it's going to help you gain so much knowledge and so much and so much information that you might be missing. Even if you don't understand it, there's still something to it. I here, case in point right now, I'll just let me finish with this. I'm learning this new tune. What's it called? Nope, nobody else but me, right? I think that's the name. Is that the name of the tune? It's so brand new to me. I don't even know the name of it. Let me look it up. I want to make sure I get it right. Um, I heard a version of it that I loved, and it was like Larry Golding. Yeah, nobody else but me. And Larry Golding's Peter Bernstein and Bill Stewart. There's a live album, and I don't know the changes yet because I just started learning this tune like 2 days ago. But I listened to Larry Golding's solo on there, and if he's a great organ player for anybody who doesn't know Larry Golding's, and his phrasing of I was like, I love the way he's phrasing. I don't know the tune, I don't know the notes he's playing exactly, but just the way he was phrasing, I'm like, oh man, I should try to phrase like that. I don't care if it's this tune, but if I'm playing Out of Nowhere, if I'm playing Bye Bye Blackbird, if I'm playing Take the A Train, oh, I could steal that phrasing. So there's elements of listening that even if you don't know the song happening, even if you don't know the context, like you can still really take a lot out of those sessions where you're just trying to listen and you can impart it in your own little journey. I just wanted to make that point. Yeah. How's everyone doing? This is we're like 90 minutes in. Everyone doing all right? This is cool. And we don't have to like this doesn't have to go for 3 hours or even two if but I just want to make sure everyone's doing okay and getting what they want out of it. And if you have anything else to talk about, like I have plenty of talking points. So um what's up, GV?
Yeah, I just something that all the to Sergey's point of like telling a story and everything we've been talking about, you know, like you yeah, you need to know the harmony of a song. Like you cannot improvise or tell a story or paint a picture over a tune until you really understand, well, not really understand, but um, are incredibly familiar with the harmony of a song. Otherwise,
Mhm.
you really kind of, again, like then like there's a place for plugging in like certain sounds that you're trying to work on, but like a great thing to do is to just like improvise free time over like with like a tune, like it could happen to you that Chris said. If and again, like going back to like um basic bits of information, like you can tell a story. I'm going to tell the story of the first 16 measures of It Could Happen to You, right? Using what I would consider, very basic language, right? Out of time ish. But what I'm hoping to convey is a certain confidence that I believe every improviser needs. If you're not confident on the harmonic framework of a song, how do you think you're going to be able to play like a creative, interesting sounding solo with heart and yada yada, right? It's like what are the steps? I mean, and I realize there are a lot of steps, right? But until you can, I think you can just, again, like what is the story? Like there's the melody, right? Right? There's the melody, right? That's telling a story. The harmony underneath is telling another story. Right? So 16 bars. I think I felt like I could hear the changes. I knew where I was going. I hope you heard that too. Um, and this is something that I do a lot, and as a great, like it's just like a starting off point, right? Like we talked about. So setting limits. All right, I'm gonna improvise like just like a rubato, just sort of like, or I don't even know, and like what would like write a like what would Bach? How would Bach write like a little sonata on a tune like that, right? Like Bach would improvise. I fell off the train, but it can be a really cool way to, again, to Sergey's point, to figure out how to incorporate more ideas. Well, if you take a basic idea of like any sort of like the chord, like eighth notes of chords. Then I'm kind of connecting some ideas within the harmony, the framework of a tune. I'm playing the changes, I'm connecting ideas, yes, I kind of sound like a robot, but I mean, we need to kind of get over that hump before we can start like really improvising. Right? So that's me slowly warming up in this tune. But that's me with my palette has different colors on it, right? Different color combinations. But we all have access to the same stuff. I really think that we cannot overlook the importance of um, memorizing tunes. Don't read tunes out of books. If there's a tune that you're learning, memorize it. Think like, I mean, we got a bass player in the room. Think about being a bass player. If you're a saxophonist, play quarter notes through tunes. That's such a great way to learn a tune.
Mhm.
You know, Chris and I put out a course, the Rhythm Project, with all these different ways to, use rhythmic rhyming as a way to memorize tunes. Right, where there's so many things to think about. I got to think about being like melodically interesting and rhythmically interesting, but also playing with feeling and soul and yada yada yada. That it can be hard to just get down to like the real hard work of like what it really takes to like memorize and internalize a song. And then over time, you start seeing that all these tunes are kind of the same with just like a few bars are different, right? This tune,
Yeah.
like, that's why to the point of like just getting familiar with a 251 or a 3625 turnarounds, like even outside of the theoretical function of all that, which you can get books and books and go to school and stuff like that, but it's a sound. It's a sound. These turnarounds, there are these sounds that we've heard the masters play, and then all of a sudden, through your own exploration of this stuff, which is like it is truly the most essential part. I say one of the most essential parts of improvising, especially in jazz or bebop, whatever you want to call it, is just that what is your grasp of being able to play changes, right? Because that's what separates the grown-ups from the not grown-ups, right? Hopefully that makes sense. And so if that's something that you need to work on, that's the stuff you got to work on, because that work will just pay dividends in your playing, because they are the building blocks of all this music that we want to be able to play, or that we already play, but maybe we're just kind of skating over the top, and because we haven't really dealt with like really digging in and getting our fingernails dirty with harmony, which is incredibly important. And we can do all the things that we want. We can work on licks or 251s or whatever we want while memorizing tunes, right? Again, like it's like how we practice is very important part about this. So sorry for another. I love talking about this stuff. If you couldn't already.
Yeah, it's great. No, it's great, Jeff. Gee, Jeff, you do a great job of it. I want to reiterate something real quick with what Jeff said. When we talk about transcribing, try to transcribe the harmony. Try to listen, focus in on the bass. And if you transcribe the harmony from a recording, you're gonna I have no doubt you're gonna learn that tune way better than if you're reading it off of your computer screen or your tablet or something. You're gonna internalize it more, and you're gonna hear those changes versus like reading them. When you read something, I learned this back in college, that when you read something, it typically only stays with you for less than 24 hours. If you hear something, it usually stays in your in your memory for about 2 to 3 days, 48 to 72 hours. Now, if you teach someone, it will stay with you for a long, long time. So my suggestion is you hear some changes, you write it down. So you got the oral and you got the visual, and then you go teach someone the changes of the tune. Even if it's just like, hey, even if they don't even know anything about music, just be like, hey, I learned the first 8 bars of this song. I'm just gonna explain it to you. Just let me explain it to you, even if you're not getting it. Or message someone in this group and be like, hey, I'm working on I don't know, name a song. I'm working on It Could Happen to You, and hey, this is what I hear for the first 8 bars. This is the motion I hear in the bass. Maybe we all are emailing Jim and making him check the bass lines for us as our resident bassist. Um, but I tell you what, if you take the time and listen to a song and try to really hone in on the bass and then eventually get the and then get some of the harmony with the piano, um, it's going to stick with you so much more. And internalizing that tune is such great advice from GV. So um, I think I think that might be a really nice place to kind of end off today. Um, yeah, GV's taken off. Thanks, GV,
Thanks,
for everything.
thanks everybody. There was some great information and really good hearing from you guys and different ideas. It's really refreshing to hear, and I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah. And for anybody that wants, I'm gonna put this talk, I'll send a link out.
Thanks, Jeff.
But for Yeah, thanks, Sergey. Thank you to everybody. And I want to let you know, if you want some more information, email me, we'll touch base, and this will be great. So I'm guessing all of you guys are signed up for the newsletter. If not, I can be in touch any other way. So thank you all for all your time and for all your support. And GV, you're the man. I love you, pal.
You're the
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you all. We'll see you soon. Hey, we're gonna do this again, so I hope you guys had a good one. And we'll keep expanding upon this. So this will be great.
Thank you.
Cool. Looking
All right.
forward to the next hang. Absolutely.
All right, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sergey. Take care, guys. See you,
See
Ryan.
you.
See you, Walter. See you, Luis. See you, Joel. See you, Sergey. Bye.